Chapter 1446. Lai escapes from trouble. Nash country. The battle between the Burial Master and Prince Anlit reached a fever pitch. The pressure of the bishop level reverberated over the sky of Nash country, emitting the amazing power of a small nuclear explosion. Even Zhang Yi, Lancelot, and Gao Changkong, three high-level white chariots, were absolutely unwilling to approach the core area of power. But none of the three parties were idle. They reached a unified tacit understanding, that is, they must destroy this powerful civilization outside of human civilization. When the Doomsday comes, all races will be affected by the cosmic gamma rays and mutate. Once the hundreds of thousands of people in Nash country begin to mutate on a large scale, it will cause a huge disaster to human society. No one is willing to gamble, so completely eradicating the civilization is the best choice. In addition, it is to reap the wealth of this country. Zhang Yi swooped down with Liang Yu, Uncle Yu, and the private soldiers of the Paji family, and started to clean up from the bottom of the Abyss country. Facing a huge country, Zhang Yi understood that it was a waste of time to clean up slowly. So he floated directly in the air, slowly raised his right hand, and a powerful dark void force slowly took shape behind him. The black void vortex slowly rotated, like a huge black hole, emitting a terrible pressure, and as it rotated, it slowly expanded and finally shrouded the city, like a huge black sun. When the surviving residents of Nash saw this scene, they felt a fear like the end of the world in their hearts. Stars are falling. Zhang Yi pressed down hard with his right hand, and the huge black sun instantly burst out with hundreds of millions of black arrows, falling like a violent storm. Swish! 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 Billions of void arrows fell down, instantly penetrating the hard buildings and the bodies of the three-eyed people. The existence below Epsilon could not withstand the power of any arrow at all, and was directly penetrated. Screams continued to come, just one move. At least more than 50,000 three-eyed giants were killed. And Cheongda, Liang Yu, and others did not hesitate. After Zhang Yi's first round of purges, they rushed into the city with weapons and finished off the surviving three-eyed people. However, under this indiscriminate large-scale attack, a terrifying existence in the abyss was awakened. The huge scarlet eyes slowly opened, revealing a confused and fierce look. A head of fiery red hair grew ferociously in all directions, like a burning fire. One of the 5 generals of Nash country, Explosive Fist, Lai. The power index is 20,000 points, black chariot level. Even the previous funeral master had to use the illusion seal method to deal with him, and did not dare to kill him by force. Zhang Yi was not aware of this matter, so he woke him up unintentionally. Lai's eyes hesitated for a long time before slowly returning to reality. Am I entering an illusion? As expected of a black chariot-level alien, he quickly realized the situation he encountered. But these short few days were as long as a lifetime for him. He took a deep breath, and at this moment, a large number of black arrows fell from the sky and pierced his tall shoulders and back. Puff, puff, puff. The huge arrows pierced his body, turning him into a giant hedgehog in an instant. In Lai's eyes, a raging fire of anger burned. He felt the surrounding atmosphere, heard the wailing of the Nash people being slaughtered, and looked around, and saw many hairless mice, wearing strange clothes slaughtering the people of Nash. Roar! Lai clenched his fists, raised his head, and roared. All the void arrows on his body were directly shattered, and his skin was intact. Not even a little scar was left. The huge roar mixed with powerful force caused the eardrums of the nearby Pudge family private soldiers to be directly shattered, and some of the weaker ones even had their internal organs shattered and died. Bastards. Come and have fun with me. Lai stomped his feet on the ground, and his huge body immediately soared into the air, and the earth seemed to be shaking. Boom. He soared into the air and punched out, burning a private soldier team of dozens of people into ashes in an instant. Zhang Yi felt this powerful force, and his eyes became sharp. Why is there another expert? This momentum is Epsilon. 18,000, 19,000, or even 20,000 points of supernatural power index. At this time, under the abyss, the private soldiers of the Pudge family were already scared pale and fled. Even Liang Yu and Uncle Yu looked solemn and immediately retreated. Zhang Yi, it's not good. There is another powerful three-eyed tribesman here. Liang Yu reported the situation here to Zhang Yi through the voice channel. Uncle Yu also said immediately, should we call Gao Changkong and Lancelot over? This guy gives people a very powerful feeling. After hearing these words, Zhang Yi paused for only a second and then said lightly, there is no need for that. Instead of leaving my back to someone who is uncertain, I might as well do it myself. Whether it is Gao Changkong or Lancelot, they may backstab him at a critical moment. After all, after the funeral master delayed Prince Anlet, they are no longer a cooperative relationship for the time being system, and he has grievances with Gao Changkong and Lancelot. In addition, I also want to try how strong I am now. Zhang Yi slowly raised his right hand, and the emerald green vines extended from his qianlong armor, gradually condensing into a huge tree sword. After several difficult battles, the power of Senbamu absorbed in his body has been integrated a lot. Coupled with the tree sword in his hand that fits his fighting style perfectly, his comprehensive combat power has been greatly improved. So he wants to try his current strength. The next moment, Zhang Yi did not hide his strength, and his eyes pointed directly at the huge figure under the abyss. The thoughts of the strong, mixed with strong emotions, Zhang Yi's fighting spirit was instantly felt by Lai. He roared and rushed straight to Zhang Yi without hesitation. Just one punch directly tore the entire sky, submerged the area where Zhang Yi was, and the huge fire column blew away the clouds in the high place. But after the flames dissipated, Zhang Yi just stood quietly in the void, as if he was not affected at all. Lai stepped into the air step by step, and was suspended in the air like Zhang Yi. Uncle Yu said in surprise from a distance, is this guy a telepath? Why can he float in the air? At this time, Liang Yu gave an explanation. She looked at Lai with a serious look and said word by word, I feel an extremely powerful and terrifying aura on him. Chapter 1447 Grandmaster. Liang Yu gave his own understanding. Powerful warriors can control the qi in their bodies through practice, thus achieving powerful combat methods. 8 years ago, I practiced qi power and could injure the skin of a watermelon from a distance. After the Great Mutation era came, my body mutated and could control more powerful qi. Now I can achieve the level of qi power, leaving the body. But in ancient legends, the top warriors or qi practitioners in ancient times could reach the level of flying in the air. Liang Yu looked at Lai in the air, his eyes shaking violently. I didn't expect that I could actually see such a legendary existence. Uncle Yu heard this, and suddenly realized something. You mean to say that this red-haired guy in front of you is the martial arts grandmaster of Nash country, right? Liang Yu nodded. In this country where everyone practices martial arts, they have more sufficient conditions to become grandmasters. But after hearing this, Uncle Yu laughed instead. He looked at Zhang Yi and Lai in the air, not worried about the outcome of this competition. But Zhang Yi's ability can best restrain the grandmaster. After the flames all over the sky dissipated, Zhang Yi stood there with a calm look. The flames generated by the qi gene are indeed very powerful. But this kind of pure power attack is useless to me. After saying that, he slowly raised a finger and pointed at Lai. The next moment, one of the countless dimensional doors in front of him opened, and the raging fire rushed towards Lai in the original way. Feeling the familiar breath, Lai's face began to look a little ugly. This is my explosive flame fist.
Boom.
The flames went back the way they came and hit Lai directly. Caught off guard, he raised his arms to resist this power. But his strength was strong enough, so his own attack had a good effect on him, and he was blown thousands of meters away from the air. Zhang Yi gave up fighting with a knife. He would not be stupid enough to fight a martial arts grandmaster of Nash country in close combat. So he took out 2 large white-owl pistols and pulled the trigger continuously at Lai. The speed of the bullet was extremely fast. But after Lai felt the power contained in it, a mocking smile appeared on his face. This level of attack can't cause any harm to me at all. He simply protected his face and used his strong body like a rock to resist. Dozens of bullets mixed with the power of the void fell on his body in the blink of an eye. The powerful power of the void touched his body and soon dissipated completely, and it was difficult to break through his hard surface. But after that, dozens of terrible forces broke out. It was like dozens of small black suns exploded in Lai's chest. The origin bullet with the power of breaking magic, plus the nuclear warhead, is equally deadly even for powerful aliens. Lai didn't understand at all how high the level of civilization in the outside world had reached, so this blow was destined to make him regret it. The violent explosion engulfed everything around him, and the strong pain began to spread in Lai's body, causing the muscles he was most proud of to tear. The confidence and ridicule in Lai's eyes slowly turned into fear. In an instant, he was blasted away by this terrifying force, knocking down dozens of high-rise buildings and even city walls. Zhang Yi did not hesitate and immediately launched Space Shuttle to chase him, then pointed both guns at his body and pulled the triggers in his hands continuously, almost using the pistol as a machine gun. Lai's body was deeply trapped in the city wall, and his chest was blown into a bloody mess. Before he could come to his senses, Zhang Yi's bullets had already killed him. This time, Lai didn't dare to be arrogant at all. His face changed, and he immediately dodged the attack of the bullet. He hugged a giant building hundreds of meters high with both hands, uprooted it directly, and then threw it at Zhang Yi like a javelin. Although I know you don't understand my language, I still kindly remind you, physical attacks are basically meaningless to me. After Zhang Yi finished speaking, he directly opened the dimensional door. The 3,000-dimensional door summoned by Sinluo Wanxiang had already formed more than 18 layers of defense boundaries around him. The flying giant tower did not cause any vibrations in the dimensional gate and was directly swallowed into the other dimensional space. Zhang Yi made a backhand move and let it fall from the air and hit Lai. Lai dodged the falling giant tower with a flash and began to stare at Zhang Yi in the air with a serious look. This guy, is he a person with spatial ability? It's a little tricky to deal with him, but I don't believe that your defense will be completely flawless. Lai gritted his teeth, stepped into the air, and appeared in the area behind Zhang Yi the next moment. He pulled his right fist like a longbow, aimed at Zhang Yi's dimensional gate, and blasted it fiercely. Boom! The sturdy fist gushed out a terrifying explosion of flames and rushed straight to Zhang Yi's other dimensional space. As long as my power is strong enough, there is no defense that cannot be broken. Zhang Yi pointed his right palm in the direction of Lai, and the terrifying explosion of flames came, like a sea of fire burning the sky. There was no room for retreat within a radius of 10 miles. There is only one way to break through my dimensional gate. That is to instantly burst out the power that breaks through the boundaries of space and destroy one of my 3,000 small worlds. However, all the power below the boundary, as long as it belongs to the physical level, will be absorbed by me, then rebound. This is why Zhang Yi is called absolute defense. In addition to the ability of the absolute rule system, only those who are absolutely ahead of him in terms of power can destroy his defense. The prairie fire was completely swallowed up by Zhang Yi into the alien space, and then all returned to Lai in an instant. Although Lai had been prepared, he was still deeply shocked by Zhang Yi's unsolvable defense method. The next moment, the sword in the tree completely exploded, like a giant tree that exploded, and began to spread in all directions with Zhang Yi's right hand as the foundation. Boom. 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 The thick roots took root in all directions of Nash country, absorbing the power from the earth, and then grew wildly again, unexpectedly condensing into a huge cage in the air, strangling Lai. While resisting the attack of his own strength, Lai swung his fist and smashed the troublesome vines. The vines were burned by the fierce fire, and they burned fiercely. This should be the most restraining attribute for plant-type ability users, but at certain moments, it may not be the best restraining method. Because of Lai's actions, the vines formed a huge sea of fire around him, trapping him in it. Chapter 1448, Divine Realm Purification. I don't believe that I can't blast open your turtle shell. Although Lai was entangled by vines, he quickly tore the fire cage apart with his absolute strength. He glared at Zhang Yi and rushed over again with a roar. His fists were full of powerful energy, vowing to tear open a hole in Zhang Yi's defense. Zhang Yi's reaction was extremely calm. You are not the first person to say this. Of course, nor the last one. His hand slowly covered his right eye. But by the way, I remind you that what you have seen is only my means of defense. Now it's my means of attack. He put down his palm, revealing the eye that twisted with dark light like the abyss. There was no terrifying pressure, and no powerful aura was released from his body. But when his eyes stared at Lai, who was killing from a distance, Lai suddenly felt his body tense up. Puff! A very slight sound came, and the movement was not loud, but Lai's body, as hard as a boulder, suddenly twisted strangely in the air. It was like a stone sculpture, with the giant twisting his limbs with great force. Ahem! Lai's pupil shrank, and he spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. What kind of weird kung fu is this? Lai's muscles swelled up, and he adjusted his body with force, then retreated thousands of meters at the speed of light. He stared at Zhang Yi cautiously. There was no sign of his attack just now. I didn't even feel where his power came from. It's just like it was born from the void. Zhang Yi looked at Lai with blood on his mouth and smiled with satisfaction. Although it's a pity that you can't understand my language, as the first person to experience my new ability after awakening, I am happy to share my joy with you. He smiled and stretched out his right hand to Lai, and then slowly snapped his fingers. The name of this ability is God's Domain Purification. Lai knew that Zhang Yi's attack was coming, and his muscles were tense, and he took a full defensive posture. But the next moment, the feeling of being squeezed from all sides came again. From all around his body, there was a huge force, like a giant 10,000 feet tall holding him in his fist, and then clenching it tightly. Crackling. Even though he was the general of the Three-Eyed Clan, his body couldn't stop making the sound of being squeezed. The internal injuries that were originally forced down in his body became more serious at this time. Ah! Life finally couldn't help but let out a wail. His body twisted again, and blood spurted out of his throat. Now Zhang Yi has almost completely digested the original power of Senbamu. Now he has also successfully broken through to the level of the Black Chariot and reached the limit of 20,000 points of the Supernatural Power Index. This new ability is an upgraded version of God Destruction. Completely distort the space in a larger area. Others can't see it, but in Zhang Yi's field of vision, there is a void sphere area with a radius of 1 kilometer. In an entire area, the space is distorted, and all objects are forcibly squeezed towards the core area. And the closer to the center area, the stronger this pressure is. The most terrifying thing is that, unlike the pre-swing of Shenmi's skills, God's Domain Purification can be cast instantly. In other words, within a radius of 3,000 meters centered on him, unless there are aliens with special abilities, there is no way to avoid the attack of God's Domain Purification. Crack, crack. The body of the enhanced alien is tougher than steel. Even though he has endured Zhang Yi's God's Domain Purification center point attack, Lai was not subdued, but struggled to break free from the restraints. But his choice was not to escape, but to run straight to Zhang Yi. The enhanced alien, who is strong in close combat, would completely lose the chance to defeat Zhang Yi if he chose to escape. He is very smart because in front of Zhang Yi, a dual-system alien of time and space, escaping is completely a fantasy. Don't let Zhang Yi think you are weaker than him, otherwise you will suffer. You can't beat him, and the key is that you can't escape. Lai's fighting instinct made him realize that close combat is his best choice. But, very regrettable, Zhang Yi slowly stretched out his right hand. All things in the universe, 3,000 worlds. A series of huge dimensional gates filled the void world with Zhang Yi as the center. Lai couldn't get close at all and was blocked by the dimensional gate. He could feel the fluctuations of space. After the previous battle, he had already discovered this kind of gate connecting to another world. So Lai's choice was to break through head-on. Roar! He roared, swung his fist, and punched forward fiercely. The terrifying chi turned into a raging flame. This blow contained 100% of his strength. I don't believe that your defense is really invincible. Zhang Yi nodded. It is indeed invincible for you. After reaching 20,000 points of supernatural power index, Zhang Yi's Dimension Gate's defense power has been improved by more than one level. After the absolute power is applied to defense, the benefit obtained is a geometric exponential improvement. Lai's power does not reach the threshold of its bearing power. So this punch was bounced back again without any suspense. Bang! Lai was hit by his own attack and flew backwards in the air. Since the Qi gene has no effect, then he looked fierce. At this time, he already knew that he had no way out. If he retreated, he would be killed by the guy in front of him with his weird spatial ability. Only fists can make a way out. Lai waved his fist and rushed towards Zhang Yi again. Zhang Yi raised his right hand lightly. God's domain purification. His eyes were shining, and he could clearly see the trajectory of his supernatural power. He was too familiar with all the changes in space. That was the change of a whole spherical space completely collapsing towards the central area. And at that center point was the great general eye of Nash country. Crack, crack. The familiar sound of bone deformation sounded, and Lai's face turned red, but this time he was mentally prepared, so he roared and rushed straight to Zhang Yi with all his strength. The use of God's domain purification is not unlimited, and it requires powerful superpowers, so there is a 5-second interval between the two uses. It was during this opportunity that he came to Zhang Yi's 3,000 dimension gates. Then he punched the dimensional gate and punched in. A look of astonishment flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. Because the next moment, Lai disappeared from the spot and entered his different space. Chapter 1449. Do you want to practice with me? The next time Zhang Yi saw Lai, it was in his space. Lai looked at the white void space around him, where nothing existed, and his eyes were blank for a moment. Zhang Yi had understood his idea at this time. In Lai's opinion, since his Qi gene attack would be rebounded, then fighting directly with his physical body might have a different effect. Lai was gambling. And the saddest thing was that he made a wrong bet. Because he didn't know what was behind those dimensional doors. It was not a simple ability to rebound attacks, but a space that carried 3,000 independent existences. And what was even more terrifying was that the speed of time in the space was completely different from that in the outside world. As long as you stay in it for 1 minute, your mind can experience the passage of several months in the outside world. This kind of torture is simply not something that ordinary people can bear. However, Lai was an exception. As the top warrior of Nash country, his willpower had long been so strong that ordinary people could hardly imagine. He began to look for the boundary in the white void space, and then began to use all his strength to bombard the boundary of the space. There were no fancy moves. He just used his huge fist to mobilize his perfect muscles and use his powerful strength to attack. Zhang Yi could clearly hear the slow and powerful sound of the impact. His fist was very fast. If we consider the speed of time in the alien space, he could punch once every 10 minutes on average. Lai was not affected by the environment. He had a firm look and attacked the barrier of the alien space with one punch after another. Zhang Yi watched all this silently, because he couldn't do anything at this time. 5 minutes of outside time had passed. If an ordinary alien entered Zhang Yi's alien space, even if he was not suffocated to death, he would die of mental breakdown. But Lai was still the same. Crack. The white barrier finally had a crack. Lai slowly swung his fist, and his movements were like children playing. It looked extremely slow, but it was full of explosive power. Another punch hit the barrier, and the whole world shattered. Lai escaped from the alien space with his own power and stood in front of Zhang Yi again. Pa pa pa. Zhang Yi clapped his hands and smiled at Lai with approval. Very good, There are not many people who can escape from my space. You are the second one. At this point, he couldn't help but think of the guy named Fingguangyuanren. If that guy hadn't died, how strong would he be now? There were too many geniuses in this world, and if they hadn't died, they would have become famous and powerful. But there are no ifs in this world, and the dead are not qualified to leave their names in history. Lai's face showed a hint of arrogance. Your ability has no effect on me. The two could only have a one-sided conversation, because Zhang Yi could understand Lai's language, but in order not to reveal any information, he didn't let Lai understand his language. But this time, Zhang Yi asked the intelligent system to convert the language of Nash country. I have a total of 3,000 dimensional gates. Do you want to try and see how many you can break through? After understanding what Zhang Yi meant, the smile on Lai's face disappeared immediately, and his scarlet eyes tightened instantly. Zhang Yi raised his hand. God's domain purification. The terrifying pressure came from all directions. As long as you are within Zhang Yi's domain, this move is completely unavoidable. Lai resisted the attack again, and spat out a mouthful of blood with a wow. Even if he broke through an alien space, he consumed a lot of his strength. At this time, he was no longer in his prime. It's not that his strength is not strong enough. If he wants, he can even overturn the entire Nash kingdom with his bare hands. But his strength that is enough to move mountains and fill the sea is completely useless in front of Zhang Yi's alien space, just like a heavy punch on cotton. Don't underestimate me. I am the general of Nash, Lai. Lai roared, and rushed towards Zhang Yi again without admitting defeat. Once again, he entered the game. He knew that as long as he broke through Zhang Yi's dimensional door, the skinny monkey in front of him would let him control him. So, he wanted to make a big gamble. You are so stubborn. But I can give you this opportunity, lose. Zhang Yi said so. But in fact, he couldn't stop Lai's approach. That guy didn't play by the rules. All the opponents he met in the past would try every means to avoid his dimensional doors. Only Lai was so stubborn. But courage doesn't mean strength. Using one's own weaknesses to gain the strengths of others is actually a very stupid approach. If my space was so easy to break, I would have died long ago, Zhang Yi said lightly. But he didn't expect that this battle would last for nearly an hour. Lai tore apart 32 of his dimensional doors with his bare hands, nearly twice as many as he thought. But the distance between tearing apart 3,000 the dimensional gate is still a full 100 times short. Lai exhausted his own strength and attacked with his flesh and blood. The vitality of the three-eyed tribe's enhanced alien was too tenacious. He actually endured Zhang Yi's 13 times of divine domain purification. Although powerful, he was ultimately no match for Zhang Yi, who was a dual-system time and space. The last time, Zhang Yi used the power of divine domain purification to squeeze his already scarred body into a blurry blood ball. Even the toughest body could not withstand such repeated beatings. The last of the 5 great generals of Nash country fell. Zhang Yi collected his body. Now he had just absorbed the essence of Senbamu. His body was saturated in a short period of time. This essence might have to wait until later to be absorbed slowly. He looked into the distance. In the distance, the Qianwu treasure wheel behind Gao Changgong turned. His eyes were alert, and he looked at him with a smile, ready to escape at any time. In another direction, Lancelot looked at the sword in the tree in Zhang Yi's right hand with a complicated look and seemed to be gritting his teeth in anger. Lancelot already understood that Zhang Yi would never give him the sword in the tree. But there was not only anger in his eyes, but also a strange teasing, which was meaningful. Zhang Yi calmly took out Yang Xia's supernatural food from the alien space to replenish his body's consumption. He had just experienced such a big battle, and the consumption was also very large for him. But he still looked at the direction where the two were with a smile. Why? Do you want to come over and practice with us? Lancelot frowned. He did have such an idea at first. Zhang Yi killed Lai, but his consumption was not small. If he took action at this time, he would have a good chance to avenge his previous shame and regain the origin of the sword in the tree and Lai. However, his injuries were not healed at this time. Not to mention that only Gao Changkong agreed to join forces. They would have a slight chance. But now looking at Zhang Yi's calm eyes, he finally gave up the idea. First, he didn't trust Gao Changkong. Second, he had no reason to take a gamble with his life. Chapter 1450 Mobilizing the God of Death of Love. Lancelot turned around and left without hesitation, but before leaving, he said this to Zhang Yi meaningfully. Don't be too proud too early. You'll pay the price for your actions. Zhang Yi frowned slightly, then smiled and raised his gun to him. Are you a fool to threaten me at this time? Lancelot's face changed immediately, and he fled without hesitation. Bang! A black light penetrated the void and shot at Lancelot. Guardian Shield Conger. Lancelot immediately summoned the Guardian Shield to block in front of him. Although the whole person was hit hard and flew away, he took advantage of the situation and escaped. Zhang Yi looked at his figure going away. This guy has become stronger than before. It seems that the origin he got has also greatly improved his strength. After that, Zhang Yi looked at Gao Changkong in the other direction. Gao Changkong quickly raised his hands and smiled. Don't get me wrong. I just came here to watch the fun. Watching the fun can kill people. Zhang Yi said coldly, with drooping eyelids. It's better not to be like this. Even if you kill me, I'm afraid there will be no benefit. Don't let others take advantage of it. Gao Changkong said, his eyes pointed to the direction where Lancelot was. Although Zhang Yi had gone through a fierce battle at this time, he was still very confident that he could kill another person. But in that case, it is indeed possible that another person would take the opportunity to attack him. Not to mention that the battle between the Burial Master and Prince Anlet in the sky has not ended yet, and he must retain enough strength to leave here. Gao Changkong, I have your people here. How about making an exchange? Zhang Yi said to Gao Changkong lightly. Gao Changkong heard this, and his eyes flickered rarely. Batu is in your hands? Zhang Yi nodded. That's right. I originally planned to kill him, but he said that you would use a generous reward in exchange for his life. Now it depends on your sincerity. Otherwise, he will still die. Zhang Yi's mouth curled up with an evil smile. I will send him to Blizzard City. Guess what Zhu Zhang and his group will do to him with their style of doing things. Gao Changkong smiled bitterly. Let me see his people. Zhang Yi did not hesitate to let Mu Yan open the shadow space and bring out Badu, who was tied up tightly. After confirming that Badu was still alive, Gao Changkong breathed a sigh of relief. Chun Xiaozheng was also dead. Now, only Gu Man and Badu were still alive in his old team. He thought about it and took out a transparent glass bottle from his body. There was a yellow gem inside that was shining. How about I use this fragment of the God Source to exchange for his life? Zhang Yi took a look. This piece of God Source was about 1/3. Although it was not enough for the alien to break through from the Delta level to the Epsilon level, it could greatly improve the potential. In addition to the complete God Source in his hand, it means that his team can get another Epsilon and a quasi-Epsilon level alien. This deal sounds good. Zhang Yi had no reason to refuse. He didn't look down on Bada's little source, so he simply exchanged it with Gao Changkong. Then next, Gao Changkong was about to say something, and a sharp explosion came to his ears. The two of them looked up at the sky. They could not see anything, but could only feel two terrifying forces fighting desperately. The battle became more and more intense. The two could no longer control their own strength. The power that escaped began to destroy the Nash kingdom. The cities of the two upper kingdoms had been blown into ruins. The powerful force and the majestic pressure made Zhang Yi and the other two feel deeply afraid. With their current strength, they are already at the absolute top level of human beings, but they seem extremely powerless in front of these two people. Gao Changkong and Lancelot were ready to retreat at this time. If the Burial Master lost, they would leave this place without looking back. Only Zhang Yi stared at the sky with a serious look. Gao Changkong and Lancelot could escape, but he could never just leave like that. Because once the Burial Master lost, Prince Anlet would definitely go to the surface. At that time, facing the human race that destroyed his kingdom, what would Prince Anlet do? It must be a bloody massacre. So far, There may not be anyone in the entire Huashu kingdom who can compete with Prince Anlet in terms of power, or perhaps only the mysterious Ho Tu in Shengjing can stop him. Zhang Yi dare not gamble. He does not allow anything to destroy his comfortable life. Thinking of this, Zhang Yi thought for a long time and made a decision in his heart. Shwa. His figure flashed and disappeared directly on the spot and shuttled towards the top of the dome. Now, his space shuttle range has reached 3,500 meters, and after many shuttles, he reached the surface. According to this distance, the area where Nash Kingdom is located is at least 30,000 meters below the surface. No wonder it must be found through a special door. But for Zhang Yi, the problem of space is not a problem at all. A chill came. This was not the touch of the body, but the excitement of seeing the snow-covered land again. Zhang Yi stood on the Great Snow Mountain and used his intelligence system to send a message from the roof of the world to the Blizzard City headquarters in the Jiangnan region. Hello, Zhu Shuai. This is Zhang Yi. Zhu Zheng received Zhang Yi's call and answered it immediately before the second ring. Zhang Yi, this is Zhu Zheng. What's the matter? Zhang Yi said with a serious look. I hope to call a death of love. He directly put forward his request, and Zhu Zheng, who heard this, also showed a serious look on his face. The death of love is the foundation that several major superpowers in the world rely on the most. Without this thing, their restrictions on Epsilon-level aliens will be greatly weakened. Even the extraordinary Epsilons in the world will change color when facing a super killer like the death of love. Except for a very few beings with special abilities, such as Zhang Yi, who can temporarily seal himself in another dimension, other carbon-based creatures will be burned to ashes under the extremely terrifying explosion. And this is the best way Zhang Yi can think of to deal with Prince Anlet. Even if he has 30,000 points of supernatural power index after the battle with the funeral master, he can definitely be killed by an attack from the god of love. I want to know what happened. Zhu Zheng's expression was unusually solemn. He sat up from the chair and asked Zhang Yi word by word. Even if the other party is Zhang Yi, if he wants him to dispatch the god of love, Zhu Zheng must act cautiously. This video ends here. Thanks for staying tuned. More will come. Please like and subscribe if not already. Thanks.